I've asked myself the same question. I'm like, am I ever gonna drink again? Will I be okay if I had a drink again? Maybe, I don't know. And then I really think about it, and then I'm just like, fuck, I don't think I can.
Mm.
I don't think I could. I think that I feel that if I really gave myself the opportunity to drink again, I would just go off the rails and just never come back.
Jason LeChance, host of the Knockin' Doors Down podcast here, and my guest on this episode is Cristal Aguirre. Cristal is a dedicated influencer who's been sharing her inspiring journey of sobriety and personal growth. Cristal and I have an awesome conversation about facing one's own adversities and using them to help others in turn, as well as finding meaning, being inspirational, and being uplifting along our own individual journeys to help others. Hope you enjoy this episode of Knocking Doors Down. I know I enjoyed talking with Cristal, so please hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're on. If it's YouTube, subscribe, leave a thumb up, leave a comment, maybe let Cristal know you got something out of this, and please share with others if you think it would be of help to them. Cristal Aguirre, I can't do the double R's. I'm sorry. Uh, Thank you for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited.
I saw that you're out being loud about your recovery, and it's always great to speak with someone that maybe had influence in another way in that shift to show that anyone can change. So I really appreciate it and appreciate the messaging that you're doing.
Absolutely. It's definitely not easy, I'll tell you that. Not only staying sober, but doing it and sharing the story on social media is not easy.
Social media can be really beautiful if you're
Oh my
using it
gosh.
for the right things and doing the right things, but I'm sure you get it a lot, and
Yeah,
I've gotten it a lot of people that are just cruel. There's no other way to put it.
yeah, absolutely. And it's something where I think I've learned to grow some thick skin
Mm.
and I kind of remind myself that it doesn't matter what other people think, that the message here is not about me, it's really about helping other people. And I think when I realize that and I remember that, I kind of I kind of get over myself and I'm just like, who cares what they think? Like it's really not about me right now. It's about the bigger picture here, which
Mm.
is, helping and getting the message out and inspiring other people. So yeah.
Well, it sounds like you're definitely grateful for the place you were at in life. So, I start off these conversations with gratitude. I'd like to know three things you're grateful for today.
Wow, I love that because you know what? I've started a retreat with a couple of mentors that we have a journal. Well, not a journal, it's like a planner, and every morning you do write three things that you're grateful for. So you do start your morning with gratitude. And today I am definitely grateful for my health and grateful for, I want to say, my commitment and all of the people I have who support me.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm grateful for.
Well, and I think that last one to kind of continue off the social media conversation is those things are real. And I
Mhm.
know and I know for us that fall into
Yeah.
substance abuse and definitely living a very subconscious lifestyle,
Mhm.
um, it's nice to have
Mhm.
because this world is so effing confusing,
Yeah.
especially over the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh my God. Yes, I completely agree with you on that. Oh my gosh. I feel like being grateful for all of the people who do support, and I think continuing to, like I said, just remind myself that that's where the focus should be at, is what keeps it going, for me because I think if I was still maybe in a place, I want to say maybe 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't share
Mm.
anything. I would probably still be really insecure, really unsure of myself, and not want to share these things that actually do really matter that people should be talking more about. And yeah, I think that I was talking to another friend recently that I shared that it's tough when you get sober and the people around you are not, because a lot of times people take it personal when you start to better your life. And a lot of times people get offended because you don't want to drink anymore, you don't want to partake in whatever is happening anymore, and people do take it personal. And I said, man, you know what? I think it's just, it ends up being like a mirror. People don't want to look at themselves, that they really see that they're just stuck and doing the same thing over and over again. And when you want to better yourself, people are just like, no, they'll say things like, you suck, or why don't you be part of the group anymore? You know, why don't you want to do this? And then I'm just like, it's I wasn't happy living like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And as much as I would tell myself I wasn't. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a very cruel trick,
Yeah.
because we've got all these chemicals in our body that you react, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins, and when we're using, we can kind of end up accessing all four of them, and but it's it's so empty, and I don't know about you. When I was at the end, where it was literally the on my knees praying, asking like
Mm.
for a sign, for a voice, for something. It was just everything. It didn't work anymore. Like
Yeah.
none of it worked anymore.
Yeah.
There wasn't a darn thing. So for me, and it sounds a little different than you, people just went away. Once I got loud about it and made it clear, I got lucky. Most people just went away. They left me alone. They're like, forget this guy.
Yeah.
Because I
Too
made it
weird,
real
huh?
hard. Yeah. But it is tough. I mean,
Yeah.
plus you're what, about 2 years, 8 months sober?
Yes. Yes. Going on 8 months. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I mean, in that first year, that's tough. That's so tough. Like I personally, I tell people that are like, yeah, I'm a month and a half sober. I want to be on your podcast. And I tell them, hit me up in 11 months. Give it a
Yes.
year.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think those first couple of months are the toughest, man. The toughest. I think for me, when I first got sober, I was not a very good person. I was not a kind person. I was very angry all the time. All the time. I was irritable. Everything would get me angry, and because all I would think was like, I just want a drink. I just want to drink. I Everywhere I would go, I that's the first thing I would think of. Even before I got sober, that's really how I lived. I was like, okay, we're gonna go eat. All right, well, what am I drinking? Already thinking about what am I drinking. And it's I didn't have it get easier until I want to say maybe like the 6 month. It was a little bit easy. Not, I don't want to say easier, maybe smoother around that
Mhm.
time. Because that's actually when I started to share my story, was when I was about 6 months sober, and I didn't stop after that. And I I figured out, I was like, man, this shit doesn't get easier. Even 2 years in, it just doesn't get easier. You just know how to you build healthy ways of coping. And not only that, but you also figure out all of these other things that you were numbing the whole time. I that's for me at least. I'm not sure if you have a similar story as well, like where it
Yep.
was just numbing and running away from myself. And so after I got sober, it was also really difficult to deal with all those emotions that I was running away from for, I don't know, 10 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was.
But you're right. It is early on. It's the shits. And for me, I don't know about you, if anybody reaches out or anybody I've worked with, 12 steps really helped me. Going into treatment wasn't an option for me. And, talking with young people, like, it's going to suck, but it's okay. Like, start embracing the suck, start embracing sucking at things. Like, life is messy. We all attempt things we suck at,
Yeah.
and it's okay. Like, have fun in that. As I say, I used to experiment with chemicals. Now I experiment with life in general and trying new things and different approaches to stuff. And the good thing is I can go, yeah, okay, I've given it a shot. I don't like that. Or, as simple as I was going to a group for a while. I didn't
Right.
like it. You know what
Yeah.
I did? Stop going back. I went to a different one.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, give it a shot. Try this. It opens up so much of your life to trying different things. Maybe it's, this guy hikes and you go on a hike. You go, that's not for me. But the guy that mountain bikes, that's more for you. You get to try all these things. It's all available to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I feel even though it's another thing too, I feel that uh, it depends on the person because as much as we can tell somebody like, hey, you have all these resources to reach out to do all these things to help yourself, but and you also want to help others, right? But we can never help anybody unless they want to help themselves, right?
Mhm.
I feel like even a lot of people now will still tell me, "Oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could stop drinking." And I'm like, "You can. You can. It's just you don't want to,
Yeah.
you really don't want to. It's always like uh with anything in life, you won't do anything unless you actually really want to. And I I think that before I got sober, I did have like my mom. She was the one who was mostly, she would get upset because of how much I would drink. Other than that, everybody else would enable me. Nobody cared. Everybody was like, who cares? She's fine. And it wasn't until then my sister and then my dad, and then that still wasn't enough. I didn't care. I didn't want to listen to anybody.
Knockin' Doors Down by Carlos Vieira. Now available wherever you get audiobooks.
I wasn't done partying, and I didn't want the binge to end. I think I knew that when I finally got home, I'd have to face what I had done, and I wasn't ready to do that. Being responsible for my actions wasn't something I was looking forward to. I had abandoned my wife and baby, my family, and my business. I wanted to avoid the shame of returning to what I had left behind. Even though I was not yet going home, I wasn't sure I had enough resources to continue the binge.
Click the link in the podcast description to find out more.
Imagine this, real conversations with today's rising stars.
It's like cheating on your kids.
That's exactly right.
They're opening up about their journey to sobriety.
I have, as of today, 2 weeks.
Richard Taite, the man that revolutionized addiction treatment, is launching his brand new podcast, We're Out of Time, this Tuesday at 9 a.m. It's the podcast where sobriety gets real, but never loses its light.
You're the happiest guy I ever met.
Thank you.
Tune in and take a seat at the table. We'd love to see you next Tuesday.
Thanks for having me.
Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
It wasn't until I think I met my boyfriend now, and he's actually the one that I actually finally, I think, got through to me, and just because he was there when I was at the lowest of everything. I had gotten into a car accident, and earlier that year I got into another dangerous situation that I put my life in danger. But the car accident, it was where I put my life in danger and other people in danger. So he was also there for me, and he's the one that actually was like, let's go to church. And I was like, let's go. And I'm not religious, not even now. Like, I will never identify as being religious, but I do believe in God. And he was like, let's just go. And I was like, all right, let's go. So I went, and then that was it. I was like, okay, there was always a message every time. And I feel like I've learned now that I could still have, how do I explain this? My own spiritual beliefs and still go to church
Yeah.
because there's always a message there anyway. So I go and there's was always beautiful messages, and then I was like, all right, let me just give up drinking then for Lent. And I did, and I never stopped. So that's how that happened. At least but I
Yeah.
had to really want it, I had to
Yeah.
really like, okay, I want to do this for myself now because this cannot be the way I live. This can't be how I choose to live. And I would always tell him, this is what I do. This is how I am. And it's just a belief, those
Uh-huh.
patterns that you believe. And oh man, I don't know how he did it. I don't know. He stuck around because, like I said, I was not a very kind person. Like he was
Oh,
always punching back.
I guess love,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, I like to shake his hand and I understand being in that position for sure.
yeah,
And I think maybe maybe him having and delivering that message that it was God, a higher power, whatever you want to call it, working through him to be there, that we really start to get so many beautiful, wonderful gifts and lessons,
yeah.
that are presented to us. It's either protection or we're being provided a lesson to be learned, and maybe a situation of both. And the car accident stuff resonates with me too. That's very personal and very much a thing that there's not much that haunts me, but that haunts me.
Hmm.
Yeah. Especially knowing that what if I had hurt me is like whatever, but
Yeah.
somebody else, yeah.
Tough, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a sign of how selfish the trick is. The story that we tell ourselves about ourselves and the subs, and like, we're so married to it as a part of our identity. I don't know about you. Everybody's like, call him up. He's the fun guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yep. And I think it's also interesting that you say that because I would tell myself stories like that all the time. I would say, "Oh, I need to drink to act like myself, or I need to drink to socialize. I can't do it without a drink. I can't like." But it was like, no, that was not the truth. That was, like you said, a story I was telling myself that I wanted to believe. The truth was that I didn't know how to socialize. The truth
Mhm.
was that I didn't have a good sense of self-esteem. I didn't have self-confidence. I didn't have these things. And it wasn't until I got sober that I actually cultivated those skills to socialize and to build my own self-confidence and my self-esteem and actually talk to people because it was always a crutch for me. I
Mhm.
always used that as a crutch. I was like, okay, I'm gonna drink and social, but I was never even really like myself either when I would drink. I would like you said, be the fun guy, but I was a little what's the word? Obnoxious. I think I was obnoxious
Of course
or
we were.
yeah, really obnoxious or just really loud and just too much, And I was like, oh my God, that's not. I would think of things sometimes, or even like if I go to my camera roll or something and I see old pictures or something, I'm like, oh, I cringe because I'm like, oh my God, I was not like I guess it was me at a certain point of my life, and I'm just like, man, like I really did that. I really used to behave like this. I really did this, but I think even now, having been on all of this, self-improvement journey and doing all this work on myself, I realized that I need to love those parts of myself too. I can't just say, oh my God, and then just try to like hide it or try to like, shove it down. This never happened and try to act like I'm better than everybody else now. Like, no, like I feel that too. Like I would want to learn from somebody who's been through some shit. I don't know. Can I curse? I'm sorry. I don't know if I. Okay. Can I curse? Okay. I want to learn from somebody who's been through some shit. I don't want to learn from somebody who's never had adversity or overcome something in their life, a challenge, that I want to learn from somebody who's like been through some tough stuff, and what did they learn? How do they come out of it? What does their life look like now? What is their lifestyle? What is their morning routine? I was one of those little details, because I feel like in those little details of your day is where you start to cultivate those, that self-confidence, your self-esteem, your skills to do everything else, the discipline, and it's, yeah, that's all of that is discipline, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Making sure that we're not drinking, that's also discipline, self-control, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I just much like you, I just know where my life goes when I make that decision. And as a person that just wasn't, due to some mental health challenges and depression, like I said, growing up in a home of addiction and these certain patterns that were kind of set. And again, back to the story I told myself about myself, those things just lacked. They just weren't there. But I know picking up that, one sip, which, well, could it ever be a sip? Let's get honest.
Right.
There's no way in a snowball's chance in hell it would ever be just a single sip, is that any of the work that I've done is right out the door.
Right.
The connections with the amazing mentors that I've developed over the last 5 years of doing this podcast and through sobriety in general and being a part of that community, it just all goes out the door. And I have no desire, no matter how messy life is, and I've
Mhm.
been feeling a lot of mess lately, I have no desire to blow it up.
Right.
I'll let the mess be external, and I'll try to work on what is internal and process through it. Because if I don't deal with it, it's going to deal with me again. And that was what I was running from forever, was I didn't want to deal with those things. They never went away. I
Mhm.
couldn't out drink them. I couldn't out anything. I couldn't out date. I couldn't out anything there. There's no way.
I totally get it. Absolutely, I get it. I think that, oh man, I feel that I've I've asked myself the same question. I'm like, am I ever gonna drink again? Will I be okay if I had a drink again? Maybe, I don't know. And then I really think about it, and then I'm just like, fuck, I don't think I can. I don't think I could. I think that if I feel that if I really gave myself the opportunity to drink again, I would just go off the rails and just never come back, probably just because of how disappointed I would be in myself that I even made the decision. I would go down a whole spiral if I ever did decide to do that again. I don't know. I think before, I think there's been times too where I think about it and then I actually even get scared and I'm just like, man, like I don't know if I could ever do that. And I do miss it sometimes, Sometimes I'll think, well, I wish I was normal. I wish I could just have a drink or two and enjoy myself in dinner or on vacation or something, but I was like, no, I don't. I'm okay. I don't think I need that extra anything. And even after having done research on what alcohol does to your body and to your nervous system and to your mental health in general, your brain, everything, I was like, and it was also recommended, I think, where I saw a certain study where no amount of alcohol is okay, not even one glass of wine. And I was like, holy crap. Well, I'm glad I stopped, before later or
Yeah.
things got worse.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know. I had went to, it's about 3 years ago. My doctor and I hadn't done a checkup and I don't know how long. And so I'm worried he does a check on my kidneys, liver, or everything else. I'm like, this is gonna be bad. This is gonna be
Right.
real bad. And he's like, are you sure you're drinking that much? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, nah, you're fine. And grace be to whatever higher power, genetics, God, whatever the combination thereof, to be so fortunate. I know I probably some damage to the heart. I mean, it is just at the end of it, it's like, when people say pick your poison, it
Mm,
is poison. There's no way around the shit. It is. If you break down what it does, ethyl alcohol in your body, it is poison. It's god awful for you,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's like, okay, moderation. Well, what's moderation?
Right.
Is that 2 drinks a month?
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
because it's going to have that effect. I mean, it's let's say it doesn't completely destroy, blow up your life. It's going to have that effect just like it would be if you ate fast food every day.
Yep. Absolutely. And I think another thing I ended up doing after I got sober, I TikTok, this was when TikTok was started to become a big thing and people were talking about a lot of things. And I ran into a TikTok of this guy. I think his Instagram is Embodiment Celestial. He talked about fasting. And I was like, holy crap, I want to try this. And that was it. After I tried, that's kind of how my personality is as well. It's whenever I try something, it works, I continue to do that, which is probably part of the addiction. Because,
Sounds
you try this
familiar.
and it works. But so this is a healthy addiction, right? So I started to fast and I lost like, I don't even know, I think I was maybe over 40 pounds, almost 50 pounds. And I was almost 290 pounds. And you couldn't tell. You could not tell. Wait, was it 200? No, it was 100, 190. I would say
I was
200.
gonna say you lost a whole person, my friend. Have you dug into the archives of past Knockin' Doors Down podcast episodes? The Knockin' Doors Down podcast archive is available to you for free. Check it out. Here's a snippet from when Charlie Sheen was on the podcast.
I think shame and people pleasing are completely interwoven.
Absolutely. I agree 100% because I know I greatly struggled with that. Still do at times.
Right. And what is shame really? It's us writing a story about how someone's going to interpret or judge us with us having no idea what the outcome of the next moment is.
This episode and so many more in the Knockin' Doors Down archive. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumb up, leave a comment, and share with somebody else that you know will get value out of the Knockin' Doors Down podcast.
No, it was 190. I was almost 200 pounds. And whenever everybody would tell me like, how much weight did you lose? You look really like, you look good. And I'm like 50, 40 pounds. They're like, what? I couldn't even cause you couldn't tell, but I was like, man, I could feel it. I couldn't even go up the stairs. I couldn't, a lot of my clothes didn't fit that well anymore. It was bad. And I was also eating fast food almost every day and drinking every day. And imagine that combination, Oh man. And then it wasn't even just the drinking. I was also doing cocaine.
Mm.
And
because of course you can drink more.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, let's keep going,
I know that experience.
Yeah. So that's what I was doing. And when I started to focus more on my health, everything changed for me, man. I've always been into my health, but it wasn't until I got into that really dark place that I completely forgot about myself and my health, everything. I was miserable. Oh my God. Yeah, it was not a good time. But when I started to focus on my health, I started fasting. I cleaned up my diet. And then I actually a friend of mine had ended up reaching out to me, and he had suggested I experiment with psilocybin.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. And I had actually done some research on psilocybin before this whole thing happened where I got into this really dark place. I think I started to do some research on psilocybin for mental health in the first place, because this was around 2018. And I was like, because a lot of the times I was always depressed, and that's actually why I would drink, because I didn't want to feel depressed. And And I was like, man, there's got to be another answer. I had gone to a therapist. I went to a psychiatrist, but then they put me on medications and then I was a zombie and it didn't do anything for me.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. I said, I'll give it a try. And when he did, I would actually I would do microdosing. He kind of showed me how to do it. And oh my God, that changed my life. That also changed my life. I started to pay attention to those patterns, those thought patterns, and started to be aware of everything that was going on in my mind. And have you heard of Michael Pollan? He's an author. He's the author
Sounds
of Change Your Mind, and he actually talks about psilocybin, and he's done
sounds
like,
familiar.
but he had the perfect analogy that I think he said that when you microdose, it's as if there is new fallen snow. So before that, you have these pathways, these little rifts in the snow that you go through, but when you microdose, it's like new fallen snow. You start to build new rifts in there. So I'm assuming this goes back into like the neural pathways in your brain that start
Right.
making different connections, right? So, and it was absolutely true. I started to do different things on my days and I started to like go running again. And oh my God, it was amazing.
Hmm.
That when I started microdosing, it really, really changed everything for me. And yeah, I still do microdose to this day and it's helped so much whenever I'm like moving through something that I feel that is difficult to deal with, especially if has to do with like trauma from the past or anything that's emotional in the body or anything like that. It definitely it helps so much. So I definitely do talk about that when I do get a chance because I feel like that also really helped me a lot in my journey.
Yeah. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing. I've always been afraid of any of those, like the ayahuasca or even that, because I'm
Oh, I
afraid
hear
that
you, man.
I'm afraid I'd
I
be
hear
like the
you.
guy that I would just be like, just leave me in the jungle or something, yeah.
I want to live here forever.
Yeah, yeah. But I've heard there's been some pretty gnarly processes for people as far as what you confront. Do you find that when you do so that it's not a numbing, but maybe just a different way for the mind and the body to work through it? And I think it's so important you brought up the body. I'm reading a book called "The Body Keeps the Score," and it's all about how our physical body holds the traumas that we go through. And hey, I know it for sure. I know it when I experience something again now that, the locked up neck, back, whatever it is, these things and how they manifest within, the body itself and be like, oh my gosh, I just spent 5 hours in fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all connected. It's all connected. And I've actually, since I've started to make these big changes in my life, like I had um started an OnlyFans as well during COVID. I didn't
Yeah.
have, anything else that happened. But then I got sober and I realized I'm like, man, this isn't something I want to do anymore. This doesn't really resonate with me anymore. I don't want to continue doing this. So I've tried to figure out what to do to move out of that and I've already started the process to transition out of that. And I've actually recently been working on getting certified as a sound healer.
Oh,
So that stuff actually goes into the body, the everything, and the everything about that I'm learning right now with the sound healing is so beautiful. Just everything that goes into the sound, the body, just because we are mostly made of water, right? And the way the sound penetrates the body and it's all connected. It's so
yeah.
crazy. But I I also have another mentor who also is really, really, she's been in like medicine space for over 10 years and she knows a lot of things and she's taught me a lot of stuff. Like if I have a cough or something, she'll say, what are you holding on to? Are you hanging on to something? Or she'll ask me, are you not being heard? Are you not speaking up about something? Or are you like afraid of sharing something? And if lo and behold, it'll be something that I'm not talking about or something that I'm afraid to share or anything like that. It all goes back to this area, the throat chakra, if you're not speaking your truth and stuff like that. So it's the body is so intelligent, so intelligent. And then again, if I go into fasting as well, like you don't even the body's not made to be consuming food 24 hours a day. The fact that there's food available all day is ridiculous. That there's people buying these horrible things and putting them in their bodies rather than buying organic, or buying just whole foods and maybe not eating after a certain amount of time, like the sun goes down, eat in the morning and until maybe I want to say 11 a.m. That's kind of how I started my fasting journey as well, is I, would stop eating at a certain point, maybe like 3 hours before bed or something, and then I would eat a late breakfast or almost lunchtime, like 11 or 12. And it made a huge difference. It makes a huge difference with mental clarity and it's all connected. The mind, the body, the spirit, the mental stuff, all of it.
We forget that we are all those things,
Hmm.
that it is as a whole individual. And, when you're talking about like the sound therapy and I've tried it and I've enjoyed it. I just, the friends that I have that do it are in Canada. So it's just hard to connect with them over Zoom, but we forget that we operate, some people are like, oh, you speak so hippy dippy do now and frequencies. It's like, look, we all resonate energy. I mean, like you said, water, and we've got a lot of electricity flowing through us. And, with that type of current that goes on, we do have a certain type of connection. I mean, tell me if this isn't familiar to you. If this is how I always prove this. If it wasn't true, I wouldn't be attracted to a different type of person now than I was then.
Yeah.
Because my frequency then was a certain thing. And boy, you could take me anywhere and I could find the drinkers really quick.
Hmm.
Now, when I go somewhere else, I find and connect with totally different type of people.
Yeah.
So when people go, oh, frequency, hippy dippy do, that's what it is.
Yeah.
We do give off certain stuff. The way that we carry ourselves, the way that we think about ourselves, thus in turn think about the world that we're in, our values that thus then roll into our purpose in life. It's all like real people, when people wonder how did that person make this thing happen? Because they started to tell themselves who they were and what they were going to do, and that's what they put out in the world. Thus,
Yep.
that's what they bonded to.
Yep. Yep. That's how you start behaving and that's what you start emanating really is when you start working on yourself and lifting and getting into a higher frequency, everything starts to come for you and you kind of you realize that you're not actually supposed to be chasing anything. That once you relax and you just are, everything shows up for you. Everything shows up for you. And I think another one of my mentors actually has talked about how the world we live in is more of has been in a masculine, unhealthy masculine way, society in general, women, of course, and then also the way business is run, the way everything is run is it has to be like, what can we get from everything? Everything's taking and nothing is actually in balance with the feminine aspect of the whole world, where giving back is what is supposed to be needed right now rather than taking everything, which is why our earth is the way it is right now. There's a lot happening there, and it's just like I could go deep into that too. The, the frequency for sure though is a big thing. I believe that 100%. And I think also people forget that we are made of tiny million trillions of thousand little cells. Like when you die and you just disintegrate, these little particles just either go into the earth, and they're if you turn into ash, some people do the ash thing. That's also like you're just little particles of stuff. And all of what keeps you together is
Dispersed.
life. Like really, like how is that even like if people I think people forget to think about that, that we are these tiny little pieces of DNA and molecules and things put together and like but how, like what is how do we have hands? How do we have, it's all these things. But yeah, it's the mystery of life, right?
Well, and I think it's embracing, and I see a lot in society, and thank you for talking about like the OnlyFans stuff that I've seen it a lot with at the nonprofit that I work at, and some encounters with younger women who did that, got away from it, found how empty it left them, and everything else to whatever degree they were doing it, and putting on said platform. And I remember somebody saying something about this desire to be, well, it was how I felt unique. And I said, you do realize you were already born that way, right? Because your fingerprints, that's the only pattern that will ever exist like that on a human being. Your eyes, we got technology through security that does retinal scans. Well, that's so incredibly unique too. Also, the way that you hear, there's proof that forensic scientists, like 99.9%, they could identify a human through the bones in their ears and everything else. Our voice, it might sound like somebody else we're related to, but it's not spot on. Thus, voice recognition technology for security purposes as well. That's how unique it is. So you're telling me everything you see, hear, and touch and say is already unique.
Yeah.
Like, how much more unique did you need to get? Like, hey, I get it. I'm a guy. I get bored. I got tattoos. I color my hair sometimes. I got a nose ring, whatever it is. But that's not this.
Yeah. No. I think that no, I feel that saying that that'll make you unique, I don't think is entirely true. I think because I was in that as well, I did that. I can only speak from my own experience. I'll say that. I decided to do that because I was I was in a place where I was like, okay, I'm gonna make some money. I'm gonna um do this and like, oh, I'm gonna become this like boss babe and like have my own like that's what the mentality was that I had when I had started it and I had and then I would say to myself, why didn't I do this sooner? Like this changed my life, which it did. It gave me the opportunity to do a lot of beautiful things that came to self-improvement and work on myself, especially in my spiritual growth and stuff like that. But if anyone had ever asked me about it, I would always steer them away. I would always say, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. It's not worth your values. It's not worth your dignity. It is not worth you doing that to yourself. It's not only is it people judge you for it or people treat you differently, but it's the most important thing about it is how you feel about yourself. If you're still doing something like that, or if you did that, and then, I say that as well because when I first started to socialize again after getting sober, I realized that I was carrying a lot of shame, a lot of guilt because of the work I was doing. And I had no idea. And because I was feeling this guilt and shame, I was projecting that onto everybody else. I would meet, I would think these people were judging me and this, but these people didn't care. Like I was the one who was uh really judging myself the most. I was the one who was saying these things in my head and believing these things about myself because, excuse me, because of what I was doing for work. And it wasn't until I worked through all of that stuff and realized that, okay, that's not who I am. I'm not going to let it define me. I'm not going to let it be something that people hold over my head and judge me for. Like if that's okay. Like if people want to do that, that's fine. But I think that where it needs to stop is with myself.
Yeah.
I need to stop doing that to myself. And that's really where everything shifted for me. And I think as time went on, I realized I'm like, okay, I can transition out of this. I can get out of this. This isn't how I have to live my life. And then even now, so now my platform, I'm using my Instagram also now to share that story
Sure.
of how I'm gonna get out of this, how what's happening and just because I feel that these are like I said, things people need to talk about. People need to talk about real shit, like things
Yeah.
that people are going through that inspires, I guess, other people that wanna or are in the same thing that are stuck. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into the fact that I chose to do that.
Sure.
It also goes to the fact that I was always really insecure and it was because I wanted to get more attention and it was just more of the along those lines that I needed to really be honest with myself that why did I really do this? Why did
Yeah.
I really truly start this? Why okay, now that we know these things, we accept them, how do we move on? How
Yeah.
do we move forward? How do we make a new plan and start, a new life and it's still scary, there's like I said, the social media is tough and there's
Yeah.
people who are always talking shit and saying things and it's just like it's fine, it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And it's tough, at the end of the day, sometimes our emotions override our values, thus leading us down a road of disempowering decisions. But I appreciate you, thank you for being vulnerable about that because I do believe and I know that's a message that needs to be heard because there is a lot of distortion of things as someone that went through it, that distortion. Um, it shows it can be done. And I think just more people need to know that especially, young ladies and some young men, that's not you don't have to go down that road for the solution of your problem.
Yep.
And it's hard. Like I see it, the other thing I do, that nonprofit I work at, we work with local law enforcement and see the arrest of these young, mostly men, but sometimes women too, dealing fentanyl and everything else. And they came from a very disempowering life with a lot of trauma and issues. And sometimes that cash can make some stuff really appealing, even when you know better. Um,
Absolutely.
and it's just, but it goes to show too, despite whatever consequences, they're yours. They're not the world's to judge, not mine. That's you and God and anybody else who wants to get in there. Well, they can piss off like as if their sin is any less great. Like, come on, people, let's stop the judgment part. You're not going to help anybody.
Yeah. And it's oh man, it was tough to make the decision. It was really tough. I think if I was a different type of person, I think I'd be completely fine with it.
Sure.
Whenever I tell people how much money I was making and all these things are like, what the all this like crazy, you're crazy, like I've even told my mom and she's like, what, like, who's gonna pay your bills? I'm just like, no, mom, like, I can't do this for myself anymore. Like, when I confessed to her and I told her what was going on and how I felt about everything, and she's like, well, if that's how you feel, especially my sister, I told my sister about it too, and everyone just, gave me advice as to, okay, well, if you don't feel good about it, then you need to do something about it,
Yeah.
and that's really, again, I had to want to do something about it. And I didn't want to for a long time. I was comfortable. I had built a lifestyle around all the money I was making, and I was comfortable and I didn't care. And I would, but then I was like, I'm not happy. I
Yeah.
have the money, but I'm not happy. Like, it's really it's not worth it. I was like, this
Yeah.
isn't worth it. And now it's like this whole like cleanup phase, and just, and just trying to
Well,
figure out what
I,
else to do. And
I would think it would enhance your relationship too. I would think as a partner in your boyfriend's position, that would be difficult. I
oh
mean,
yeah, absolutely. I think so. He met me, he knew
yeah,
before, right? So he was always supportive. He never judged me. He never once said anything about anything that I do, and but it was always so interesting to see, because who I am is so contradicting to what I was doing as work.
mm,
I'm very traditional, very traditional. I'm very like, my parents are from Mexico, so I was raised Catholic. I mean, we didn't really go to church like that, but
right.
it's like I certain values and stuff, like I don't agree with a lot of things that are happening, if like with the way society operates about women, and like women getting after these things, and like I don't agree with the feminist movement. I will say that.
Sure.
I think that that's part of the problem that I ended up, I'm not blaming, but I feel like I had that type of mentality where I was like, I'm gonna get my own money, I'm gonna take care of myself, and but that's not really what I wanted. I don't want that. I want to be taken care of. I want my husband to take care of me. That's where I feel that I was so contradicting. I was contradicting myself and being, I want to say, what is that, hypocritical,
Yeah.
because I wasn't really living out what I actually believe in. And I think now, as I'm making these changes, I'm feeling so much more solid in
Mm,
who I am, because I feel like now I'm making decisions based off these beliefs now,
right.
based off the values that I know that I have and hold to. And now it's with integrity, and I think it's it's been a beautiful journey. It's been difficult, but it's been beautiful. Yeah.
Hey, we're at some point, Crystal, we're all Luke Skywalker. We all go
Yeah.
on a hero's journey, and we all
Yeah.
go through that stuff and the angst and our, rejecting of wisdom that is put before us and everything else. And eventually, we just have to learn and see and gain. I don't know about you in sobriety, my discernment has grown vastly.
Oh yeah.
Of really being able to, like, looking at something going, that's the path this would lead me down to. And I'm going to go, no, thank you, really quick.
Uh,
It's all part of the journey. And I think that that is a beautiful thing you shared too, is that, the importance of mentors. I mean, I've got several, sounds like you have several. And then eventually we get to have mentees as well. And it's such
yeah.
an important part of life and real intimacy, like
Yeah.
real intimacy. Our society, I think, really confuses what intimacy is oftentimes. And I mean, that's,
Absolutely.
you
And
know,
I think, or not even just that, but I think people forget that we need to support each other, that we need to be here, um, of service, like to be of service for each other. And I think that's also one of what my mentors are teaching, that it's being in that frequency of being of service. And
Mm-hmm.
when you are in that frequency, your life changes. Everything changes. You start to just move differently, you speak differently because you know inside that you're being of service. You're doing it to help others. It's not really about you anymore. And so yeah, I think it's beautiful that you mentioned that. And yeah, I feel like now this is my time to learn all the things that my mentors are teaching me. And then yeah, sometime in the future I'll be able to do that, help other women or whoever
Yeah.
else needs help.
Yeah. Well, I guarantee you it's already happening. There's already someone that's chosen you as a mentor that you haven't even been made aware of yet, and it's
Yeah.
the cool thing. It's like the saying, God helps those who help themselves. No, no, no. God helps those who help themselves, then help others.
Yeah.
That's just
Absolutely.
how it works,
Yeah.
So I
Mhm.
mean, that's why I do what I do. That's why you're sharing what you share. That's why we're having this conversation today.
Yeah. It's
So.
frequency.
Yeah, absolutely. So if people want to maybe connect with you, Instagram the easiest way?
Instagram, yeah.
Okay.
Instagram, I would say TikTok. I'm definitely working on trying to figure out what platforms I'm gonna move on to. If I'm maybe gonna do YouTube, I'm not sure. Maybe even start a blog. These are just things in the works right now that I'm trying to figure out, but definitely Instagram.
Right on. I'll put that link in the podcast description. All right. How about some fun random questions?
Do it.
All right. I haven't done this one in a long time. I used to have a
Okay.
co-host and this was his, and my best friend actually reminded me of this. So, would you rather fight 5 chicken-sized horses or 1 horse-sized chicken?
Oh my gosh. I would say
I know it's stupid, but hey,
five chicken sized horses.
right? Because they're small, you can kind of kick them away,
Yeah.
right?
Not a big giant chicken. No way. I think if I ever saw a chicken that size, I would probably be afraid of it.
Right?
Yeah.
Are you naturally an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm actually naturally an introvert.
Same.
Yeah, an introvert. And I think I become extroverted around certain people, or I actually kind of read the room first and kind of scope it out first, and then I'll see if people approach me or something like that. But I'm definitely not extroverted. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I host some MMA events along with some other stuff, and people are always surprised that I say I'm an introvert. It's like, look, if it comes with a paycheck and I'm told be the extrovert, then I
Yeah.
will. But
Yeah.
understand that's on a stage. Like
Yeah.
then when I get off,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
totally different. Um, is there a book that you've read recently or a TV show or a movie that you've enjoyed and had a big takeaway from it?
Oh my God, yes. I'm actually reading right now The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer.
Hmm.
And it's it's so interesting because he goes through this book talking about how he was so resistant to so many things happening in his life due to the chatter he has in his mind. I've realized that I've done the same thing where I'm like, where you ultimately block your own blessings pretty much, or block beautiful experiences from coming into your life because you're resistant to some things, because you're listening to the thoughts and the chatter that are going on in your head. So I have actually implemented some of the stuff that he's talked about in the book, and I have yet to see what's going to come out of these experiences because I think I've only been reading this for about 2 weeks. Uh, so yeah, I maybe you'll see that later on my Instagram how it's happened. But I think actually the one thing that I got from that is me getting and jumping back into getting certified as a sound healer,
Hmm.
because I actually said yes to a healing fair that friends of mine, they have a holistic center a couple of minutes away from here, and they invited me, and I was just like, surrender. I said yes. I was like, I'll do it. I don't know how. I said, but I'll do it. And so I've been working on getting the certification before the fair, and so we'll see what happens. If it
Yeah.
happens, it happens. So we're
Well,
surrendering. Yeah.
either you're going to absolutely kill it and do wonderfully, or you're going to learn something, or better yet, both.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty
Exactly.
cool. I wrote that down. I'll get into it. I'll DM you once I kind of dig through. I'm going to finish The Body Keeps a Score first,
Love that.
for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's another good one? Do you have a hobby or an interest that people would be surprised to learn about?
Hmm. I think I don't really have hobbies. I think I said have. I think what people would think that would be interesting that I enjoy doing is actually, so one of my mentors, she, like I said, is uh I want to say practices curandismo. So she does a lot of stuff with medicine,
Mm.
space, and things like that. So I think that would be something interesting that people would be like, well, I didn't know you were into that. So that's actually what I'm learning of right now, other than other things that I'm doing, is I'm her mentee, where she's teaching me stuff about how she serves certain things, how she holds space in a certain way, and so yeah, I would say that that's part of, I guess that's my hobby. I love doing that. I love learning. That's a hobby of mine.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
that's a good one. Not enough people want to do that, so
Yeah.
I commend
Yeah.
you. I'm sorry, I'm being judgmental in saying that. If you could have dinner with anyone, living or not, who would they be and why?
Ooh, that's a good one. Wow, living or not. I think it would be that guy right there.
Kobe?
Yeah.
That'd be
Yeah,
pretty cool.
for sure. I think I would love to hear what he was doing, because I heard a lot of stuff about how he was going to sue like the FDA. I forgot what exactly. There was this whole thing going on about this lawsuit or something that was supposed to go in the works like 2 weeks after he passed, and people were saying that that's probably why, and that they took him out. There was all these things, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not yeah, sometimes people call me a conspiracy theorist. Like I've just seen enough of my life of nefarious actions that are surrounding money and
Yeah.
people not wanting to take responsibility for their actions. So and
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
guilty as charged myself at times. But yeah, and this is from somebody who's been a Lakers fan since they were 5 years old. I was more of a fan of what he was doing after retirement than when he who was playing.
Yeah.
And I was in awe of him as a player. So that says a lot. And I think I think he was a really incredibly switched on person.
Yeah.
And I always loved the story about the last time he played on the Olympic team is where the whole team was out partying except for Kobe. And they're
Yeah.
coming in at like 3, 4 in the morning and they see Kobe in the lobby because he's going to work out. And that's the
Yeah.
last night anybody else ever partied. They got it. And that's what
Yeah.
the Mamba mentality was. I mean, he was just, he
Yeah.
was that Michael Jordan-esque, just another level of ethic and focus. And yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyways, this is where I ask you for the Jerry Springer moment. Give me some
Okay.
final thoughts of positivity, maybe for anyone else that is struggling or has a loved one that struggled, just what you would say.
What I would say, what I would say if someone I knew was struggling, I would really say that take some time for yourself to really figure out you are happy, if you're happy with yourself. And if you're not, then you also know that it's time to change something, and that to look for support, people around you who truly care about you, And if you don't, then that's okay too, because you'll find the people that are meant to support you on your journey. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say. Yeah.
Absolutely. Cristal,
Yeah.
thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jason, for having me. It was a beautiful conversation. Really, we touched on some really cool stuff that I'm excited about.
Yeah, well, I have to do it again down the line, or I do some of these roundtable episodes where it's, four of us on here talking. You have to come back on sometime.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, definitely. That sounds fun.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, for all you listening or watching, remember no outside solutions to inside problems and keep knocking doors down.